Hello, family and friends. Welcome again to another episode of Brain Power TV with Dr. Echo. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you today Ms. Punam Saxena. She's an amazing educator and an author of Parent Power, and we're gonna have fun today. So yes, welcome, Punam. I'm so glad you came on here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes. So I'm going to let Punam tell you all about her amazing work because I'm not sure her bio would do it justice. So Punam, tell us how you got to this place in your life where you're doing this wonderful work with kids and their parents.
Well, thank you. So I am a parent impact coach. I focus on helping parents become engaged in schools and breaking down those barriers that parents feel when talking to their teachers and schools about their children's education. Parents are the link between the children and the schools, and we can be advocates for our children and our schools if we understand. And our children thrive in that environment because they know they have a supportive team. So I've been doing this work really for almost 20 years. Wow. As a stay in the car mom, because I was never at home, but I was in their schools wanting to learn what was happening. And that way I could, when my children were frustrated, I could explain what was going on. And then when my child was having a bad day, I could communicate that to their teachers. So really helping parents become that liaison.
Right. No, that's so critical. Wow. Yes. Because with life and all the busyness, we often forget that we are really our kids' first teachers. We have to be that link, like you said, between parents and teachers, and not just leave our kids to the mercy of the schools, because the schools need us to help them, like help our kids do better, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And teachers are overworked.
Yes.
And we keep putting more and more and more, especially in today's climate, onto them and responsibilities. And it's not feasible for them to keep doing that amount of work and taking that much pressure. So the more that we can communicate with our teachers, the more they're going to feel energized and feel like they're not on an island by themselves.
Right. So because you've had such an extensive time of doing this, can you give us tips, like concrete tips parents can take away? Like I would even start with even the younger kids all the way to the older kids at each, like early education, early childhood, middle childhood, and on, like things that parents and ways that parents can communicate better with the school so that there's that smooth communication that goes on, and not the teachers thinking the parents are coming in and like trying to, what's the word, overshadow what they do,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, one of the things that we can all appreciate is when we have young children, we want to be in elementary school, right? We want to be the cookie mom and the brownie mom and the homeroom mom, and we want to do all these fun activities with them. It's wonderful. It's a great, great introduction into building relationships with the schools and the teachers. But there's a marked drop off when we get to middle and high school because we think the teachers have it. We've gotten them to this point. They're fine. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to argue that that's not the case. Our children are exposed to so much more in middle and high school than you and I ever were.
Right.
They're exposed to social media, and they have phones, and they have people doing all kinds of nefarious behaviors on these platforms.
Right.
And they're trying to manage the whole emotional, psychological, physical growing up piece of it, where they're trying to figure out who they are, and their bodies are catching up with their psyche. And there's so much that they are trying to manage. And when we are not engaged at the middle and high school level, we actually are doing them a disservice. So I implore you to become involved, and get to know your children's teachers in middle and high school. As crazy as it sounds, I knew every single teacher and in their middle and high school. To the point where we would text, we would go out for dinner. We still communicate now that my children are off in college. But it was so important because when my child was having a tough day, or they had they were off on their game that day,
Right.
the teachers would call me. I specifically remember in high school, one of my children's teachers called me and said, so-and-so just doesn't look like they're in the right mindset. Can you explain what's going on?
Right.
That's a very difficult task for a teacher to take on if they don't know that the parent wants to know and that they're going to help not only the child, but the teacher. So get involved, stay involved. Don't drop off at elementary school. We need you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so that's really important. So for any teachers watching, are there any things that you tell teachers, like how can they reach across the divide, like, to the parents, besides, yes, the PTA when they come to talk to, when teachers and parents meet together? Are there any ways that teachers can reach out to the parents as well?
I think teachers have an enormous amount of pressure on them, and trying to navigate, especially in middle and high school where they have over 125 to 180 students,
Right.
really incumbent on the parents. So teachers, if you can find just a sliver of air that you can get in there and talk to a parent, or you see them in car line and they're picking up their child, or put a note in their child's notebook, or send them an email and say, Johnny's really struggling in math right now. Is something going on at home?
Right.
All that takes time. And I don't want to say teachers are not willing to take that time. I think that we're expecting a lot from them. So it's easier for them to communicate with a parent that already is communicating.
Right. Which goes back, I knew you were going to say that. Which goes back to us.
So you asked a question you knew the answer to.
No, I wanted to highlight it because it is true. The teachers are overwhelmed, and we can't expect them to do all of these things and just to wait to hear from them. I mean, that's why I asked that question, because I was just trying to highlight what you said already, that it's so important.
You're trying to trip me up.
Do it.
Trying to trip me up. But the other part of what I wanted to say is that I completely understand that parents are also overworked. Yes. We're in a time where everything is in flux. We don't know if our children are going to be in school, if they're masked, if they're not masked, if they're going to get the vaccine or booster. We have no idea what's going on with all of this happening. Right. Not only that, but they have work. They have a job, they have projects, they have a boss. So there's so many factors that they have to take care of in a day too. So I'm absolutely not diminishing what parents have to do.
No, not at all.
But saying that, it's really simple, because we all are on our phones all the time, or sitting in front of our computers. Just shoot your teacher an email or a text and ask. And just say, can you give me an update? Is there something I need to know? And just today, and we've been out of high school for several years, I was texting with our high school principal because I had a question. That happens because you have a relationship, and and it's authentic. It's not because I want my child to get the A. It is because I want to understand so I can help my child. Right. I expect my child to get an A, but I can't help my child if I don't know what their academic deficits are. Right.
Yes. I like what you said about relationships, because I think that's what underlies this whole thing. If we look at it as, hey, I have an amazing opportunity to form a relationship with this new person. If we look at it that way, okay, we're going to meet someone new. And so even beyond updates for the kids, I'm sure they would appreciate thank you so much for taking care of my kid this year. Like for no reason, not on the teacher appreciation day, just for no reason, right? Like you said, we're always on our phones. It's just being kind, right? Yeah.
Be kind. And it's just like we develop every other relationship in our lives with significant other or our friends or our colleagues. It's the same thing. It has to be cultivated. Right. And the one thing that I will caution you against for everyone who is watching, cultivate the relationship before there's a crisis. Mm-hmm. Because management is not a good time to go in and cultivate a relationship. That's the worst time. You want to come in and do it on the front end so that if there is an issue, there's a trust that's already been built.
Right.
And there's more opportunity for dialogue and a solution that benefits everyone.
Yes. That's absolutely so important. Before we get to a problem, let's start reaching out and start the process. Yeah, that's absolutely so important. I mean, if I just remember that one fact, that should help me reach out to my kids' teachers. I'm gonna do the same thing. I need to. Yes, you're absolutely right. Wow. So I see that you have a book called Parent Power. So can you tell us about your book?
I can. It is called Parent Power, Navigate School and Beyond. It's really a book about normalizing parenting. Each day we wake up, we are tired and exhausted, and we have 100 things on our plates. We're trying to navigate our own lives and then trying to manage these little people as well. Just a book to say, it's okay. Take a deep breath. Yeah. Take care of yourself. And we're going to make it. So there are chapters in there like self-care, like getting involved in schools, be a good sport. I'm not talking to the child. I'm talking to the parents, because how many parents are not good sports when their children are out on the field?
Right.
Talking about immigration and how coming to this country and having to navigate an education system that's absolutely polar opposite to the one that my parents or you were raised in, and trying to navigate that. And then it concludes with empty nesting and how to manage empty nesting. And each chapter ends with Punam's perspective, and it's a personal anecdote of my own, of which I've gone through with my children and how I've overcome it. And it has a little bit of humor in there for you.
Good. So you were sharing a joke with me before we came on. Can you tell us?
Do you want me to share that?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of my fun, relaxing things to do is play on TikTok. I post very little, but I love watching them. So this morning I was watching this TikTok of this young girl and this mother are having this conversation, and the mother is looking down at the daughter saying, you need to adjust your attitude. And the daughter looks up at her and says, for defective parts, you need to contact the manufacturer. And I thought that was so cute, because she had her hands on her hip and she was just, all into her attitude. And I thought, boy, isn't that the truth? How many times have we been put in our place because we as parents are yelling at our children for doing the same thing that we do or have done? Yes. It took me back to a story when my daughter was in middle school, and I was yelling at her for something crazy, I'm sure, probably not worthy of it. And get out of the car, and she goes, I don't know why you're yelling at me. I'm just like you. So in essence, you're yelling at yourself. And I looked at her.
I'm sure it wasn't funny when you heard it.
I was floored, and all I could do was say, go to the room. I don't want to talk about this. Right. And she closed the door, and I burst out laughing, because she is so right. She is talking to her big me. And so I called my husband and I said, I just got had by a 12-year-old.
That's
And
right.
he thought that was funny, although I didn't at the moment.
Right.
But true, we have to be so reflective of what we model and what we're putting in the universe for our children, because guess what? They're watching us.
Yes. Yeah. No, I've had the same thing happen to me. My son told me the other day, do unto others as you like them to do to you.
How
And
did
I was
that go
trying to
for you?
correct him. I was like, oh my word. So yeah, I
Those are
asked you to
not
share the story because you were talking about your book and how parenting is, we have to have grace upon ourselves because we slip, we make mistakes, we are not perfect. But I think it's in
grace
that
is
intersection that our kids learn that they too can have grace on themselves, and they know that life isn't always perfect, right? So
grace is not something that we give ourselves or we allow our children to have, right? We want them to perform at this high intensity level all the time.
right.
And it's not possible. It's not humanly possible. So you're right. I love that you used grace, because there is a section on grace in the book. And if we don't give ourselves grace, our children will never learn it.
Never.
We have a whole generation of type A people that we have no idea what to do with.
That's right. You're absolutely right. So what I was gonna ask you, so what are your favorite tips for self-care, since you have a whole chapter? Because self-care is also equals to taking care of your brain, because then if you take care of your brain, right, it works better and everything hopefully will flow better, right?
When we think of self-care, we think of this very large pocket of time in our day that we have to carve out 30 minutes to an hour of our day. And that's great if you can do that, but that's not always practical. So, some of the self care tips I have is, just step away from the computer, step away from your children, and sit down, grab a glass of water or your favorite beverage, depending on the time, and just decompress for just 2 to 3 minutes and say, mom needs a minute. If you can give me a minute, that I can take care of this. And I promise you, your mind will reset.
Yeah.
You will have a different lease on how you're looking at whatever your next activity is. The other thing that I would say is we should start our day by ourselves. 15 minutes by ourselves, where no one's around. If you have to, and I am not a morning person, but 15 minutes where you wake up 15 minutes before everybody and just say, this is my time. And then at least 15 minutes at night where you're decompressing, reading a book, catching up TikToks or whatever you're doing, but finding those few minutes in the day where you can just decompress. And so many times, 1 or 2 minutes in the busy part of your day can reset your entire mindset of how the rest of your day goes.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Because I've had to do that. I take 5-minute power naps. I stand outside at 10 p.m. just because I need some fresh air. Just like, so whatever it is, yes, you're absolutely right. And it doesn't have to be anything expensive. It doesn't equal going to the spa. It's just finding that little space for yourself where you can take a deep breath and just be.
And I found that cooking was good for me,
Yeah.
because everyone was busy, everyone was doing their own thing, and that was my time. I could watch television or whatever I wanted to do, listen to music, and that was an easy 30 minutes of getting something accomplished, but it was really quiet time where I could reflect or think or get caught up on what was happening in the world.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And then you know the kids actually see you doing it, and it does help them to help regulate themselves, especially when they feel, oh, they have different emotions, and when they see you asking them, because in my case I have a younger one still, like a 4-year-old, and so I had to say mommy needs a few minutes to herself, and so now she's starting to understand that. When I at first when I said it, she's like, nope, I need to be here too. But now when I say it, I've said it enough that now she's like, okay mommy, and she closes the door, but she's like, but don't lock the door. So it's just whatever, however it works in your life. And it's so important, because I always tell parents, until we fill up our own cups, we can't share anything, and because all we have to share is out of our overflow, really. And unless we do that work ourselves, we are going to come up short, right? And things just get worse from there.
Absolutely. And our cups are already overflowing. So if we don't take that time, it's a time bomb waiting to explode. And I really applaud you for doing that, because what happens is that your 4-year-old is looking at you, seeing how you're taking care of yourself, and will also one day when she's older and needs that time, will say, Mommy, I need a few minutes. May I go to my room so that I can just be by myself? So you're modeling a behavior that's not only good for you, but also teaching her that it's okay. You're giving her permission to take care of herself.
Right.
And that's so important.
Right. Yes. Yes. So
kudos to you.
I try sometimes.
Well, we all try. We all try. And some days are better than others. And it goes back to what you were saying, that grace is really important.
Yes.
That, we're not going to be perfect all the time, but we can certainly take those moments and turn them into lessons of learning with our children.
Yes.
And things I did, especially when I'm not a very patient person, I'm going to go on record and just tell you that. And when I lost my cool with my children, one of the things that I did to redeem myself was I apologized to them. And I said, I should not have delivered the message in that manner. That was incorrect. What I wanted to say was totally overshadowed by what I was trying, by my actions. And so let's reset, let's try again. And what my children have learned, because they're now all young adults, is they apologize. They're like, oh, Mom, I didn't mean it that way. I'm sorry if it came across negatively. This is what I meant. And that gives everyone, it gives them grace, but it also gives us an opportunity to learn each other. Mm-hmm. And it's really nice when those types of things come back, as opposed to being told that they should contact the manufacturer.
You're absolutely right. So I'm curious, what tips do you give for empty nesters? You said you had a chapter on empty nesters, right?
A whole chapter on empty nesting. One of the things, and you take advice from different people as you talk to them, and you learn from what they have done. So one of the things I did was I shut their bedroom door. Whatever it looked like, however they left it, that's how it was. And that's how it will be until they come home, because that's their space.
Right.
Unless you're turning it into a gym, and then, that's a whole different ballgame. But, we wanted them to have the knowledge that their home was still their home. Mm-hmm. They left, but they still have a place.
Right.
Place. The other thing that was really hard for me was to sit at the dining room table and see that empty chair. Right. It's really hard to just look and go, oh, someone's missing. Mm-hmm. So I actually sat in their chair for dinners. It was easier for me to look at my empty chair than their empty chair.
Oh, that's a mind switch. Yeah.
It was a complete mind switch.
Yeah.
But it helped me, and it also made me feel connected to them.
Yeah.
Now, I have 4 children, so I couldn't send in all of their chairs when they all left. But, it made it easier, and it was softer on the heart.
Right.
And for the first month, not that I expected them to reach back out to me, but I would always say good morning and good night, I love you, through a text, just in case they were having difficulty, that they knew that I was still there. They didn't have to respond to it, but
Right.
it just let them know I was thinking about them.
Yeah, that's so important.
Some really easy tips, but I'm going to tell you, it is hard. It is hard to leave your heart. Someone you've invested all of this time and energy into.
Right.
And as my parents said, my father, he came here to the US when he was 19.
Right.
And he said, listen, my mom put me on a plane with a one-way ticket to America, and no one had been on a plane. You can drop your child off 12 hours away. You're going to be okay. And so and your story about coming here, coming to college, and even though your siblings were here, they weren't next to you.
Right.
So you're on your own.
Yes.
Those are the stories that give the rest of us perspective and give us hope and trust that our children are going to be okay. Because we look at you and all of the other immigrants who've come to this country, and if you guys can do it, we can certainly drop our children off a few hours away.
Yes. Yes. And then the reunion will be all that much sweeter, right?
Oh,
yes.
When they come home, it is so wonderful.
Yes, I bet.
They all revert back to their old habits, and I revert back to mine, and we have a great time. The conversations have evolved, and their views of the world have evolved, and those conversations are priceless.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So there's hope, guys. There's hope.
There is hope. Yes, there is hope. So can you tell our listeners how they can find you and where they can find out about your program that you have for parents?
Yes. So I can be found at edu-me.net. It is my website, and it hosts my podcasts. It describes my speaking opportunities and engagements. I do coaching. I also have my book and other merchandise for sale. So what I implore you to do is think about what you want your relationship to be with your children and with your schools, what you're wanting out of education for your child, and contact me to help you navigate it individually or a group, because the more we can expand on this message, the better our children are going to become. They benefit, and we all raise the bar on our society.
Yes. Well said.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yes, please check out Ms. Punam's courses, and she's amazing. So thank you so much again for taking the time out to come on our show today. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yes. So everyone, have a wonderful rest of your day, and see you on the next episode. Have a great, great, great week ahead. Okay, bye.